Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Council of Elrond, your number one Lord of the Rings podcast. And I'm here with my co-host and brother Dave, and we're going to just quickly talk about the new trailer for the Rings of Power series, season 2, which has just dropped. Dave, we've got more Middle-earth content, and we're going to get straight into it. So, first of all, have you seen the trailer, and what did you think?
I have not, would you believe? No, of course no. I've seen it. I had, like all the other geeks on the internet, I had the
timer on. Yeah,
the timer going down, and I was just like waiting for it to happen. And I was at work, of course, as you were, and was just waiting for it to pop up. And I kept refreshing, and I feel like it didn't come out at 2:30. It came out at 2:31. Because I was a good minute there, and I was back to YouTube and then back to Twitter, and then it popped up, and then we got it.
Oh, I was busy at work at the time, so I saw the timer go off on my phone, and I was like, I'll get to that later. And I had to be very kind of, I had to keep my wits about me, just to kind of keep myself in check. Because but then shortly
like
after,
a hobbit at a urinal, you had to be on your toes.
Keep me toes. So yeah, first impressions. I don't know about you, Dave, but I think I could easily start to overanalyze little minute details, but my first impression was just like, oh, I'm just excited to be going back to Middle Earth. And I know some people will be like, it's not the real Middle Earth or whatever, but I don't know. I don't care. I'm excited. And if that means that I hate Tolkien, well then, I don't know. Because I'm sure that's what people online will tell me. They're like, you must hate Tolkien. I'm like, do I? I always thought I loved him, but sure. I don't know. I suppose if the opinion of people on Twitter, yeah, exactly. I must be wrong. I mustn't know what I'm talking about. But again, we don't know what's going on and where things are going to go. But I don't know. It's always an exciting day when there's new Middle Earth content coming out. So how about you? Were you excited as well? Were you apprehensive?
Yeah, and the thing is now, we've definitely talked about this off camera or when we're not on the podcast. We've talked about how like season 1 was whatever it was. A lot of people hated it. A lot of people loved it. And like there's the two ends of the spectrum. Some people are really trying to like protect that season, and others are just like, this is the worst thing ever. Can't enjoy it anymore. And you and me are definitely right down the middle of that spectrum. And it's more of like, we've kind of come to terms that, okay, it's not in Peter Jackson's lore, but it's also not really like it's not the Silmarillion. It's not like it's not fully Tolkien's. It's not really canon, but at the same time, it's just fun, and it's a fun show. And the massive difference between this breakdown and 2 years ago's breakdown is probably going to be, we were looking at every minute little thing and being like, oh, kind of getting scared, being like, oh, I don't know, they're going a little bit weird with this, but hopefully they'll pull it back, and it'll like maybe it's not as it seems.
Yeah, I think what you mean is like the bar has been set, and we already know where we stand, sort of coming into season 2. We're not going to be maybe as over the top excited as we were maybe going into season 1, because our expectations have been lowered a little bit. I think it's fair to say.
They've been changed. They've definitely changed.
Well, yeah, they've been changed, and because I had set such high expectations, that's what change means lowered for me, because they were always going to be lowered because they were unrealistic expectations I had going into it, I suppose. Looking back,
but I don't think that they've lowered in my estimates. I just think that the whole concept of the show in itself has changed massively for me. Like I'm not looking, like the last time I was always trying to find reasons with why there was weird looking changes in the trailer to how it would have been done in Tolkien's books. But now I'm just totally up for, a completely different ride altogether. I'm like, we're going to see Middle Earth, but like, sure, they've got this like weird, I don't know, like spooky ghosts going on, or there's just weird things. I'm like, I'm all for it now, because sea monsters and stuff, but like, that's cool. Like,
yeah, no, I agree. I think, it's like we said, it's maybe not canon, but I mean, what is canon anymore? Things have just developed into somewhere, like, if you look at things like Marvel.
It is an old weapon from a wooden ship that used to launch cannonballs.
There's loads of things that we've spoken about before in Peter Jackson's trilogy, which were not canon as well, and we
Hmm.
were able to get past those things as well. I know maybe there's some things here that were a little bit larger than just the little changes that Peter Jackson made. But again, we're still waiting to see what happens with some of those changes. We don't know where the story has gone yet.
That's true.
And I don't want to. Maybe also, we could also think that maybe they've learned a couple of things from season one. Hopefully, they've taken some of the criticism on board and they're like,
I
okay,
think
we're
so.
going to. One of the first opening shots, I'm going to get straight into it. One of the first opening shots, I saw like a circular formation of elves with Galadriel and Elrond
Hmm.
fighting back to back against some like spooky orc or maybe ghouls or I don't know, or it kind of looks similar to when Galadriel in episode one of season one was fighting against like the ice troll. It was a kind of similar setting, maybe not so icy, but definitely like dark and spooky. The first thing I latched onto was like there was a couple of new elves and they all had long hair, and I was like,
Yes.
"Aha!" did
Yes.
you pick up on that?
No, that was one of the first thing. Well, was it one of the first things? I watched the trailer so many times I don't know anymore. But like, I definitely noticed a huge, I don't know, a huge difference when it comes to all the new elves or background elves. They have long hair, and also the costumes look incredible, and the armor it looks a lot better. And
The armor, yeah, definitely looks a
these
lot
were
better.
some of the complaints. Yeah, we'll see. Well, we're I don't know. Will we see? We won't see anything. But like, if you watch the trailer, you will see Elrond in super cool looking armor,
The
and a
battle
lot of the
charge as
elves.
well.
Yeah, and like the helmet and everything.
Mm.
Kind of reminded me a little bit of House of the Dragon and Damon
Mm.
vibes. In
Oh.
fact, I shared a lot of stuff on Twitter today. If anyone's following at melon_heads, you'll see
You've been
like
inundated with the tweets.
comparison pictures of Damon and Sauron, and also I put up an image of. We'll get into it later
Oh,
now,
Damon and
but
Sauron. Oh, yeah, I see
yeah,
it
yeah.
now. I see it
There's a
now.
very
Okay.
similar poster, but there's also an image of Ar-Pharazôn,
Mm.
El-Pharazôn, Ar-Pharazôn
This
with
is
the
Spanish
eagle behind
Farazon.
him. Yeah,
El Farazon.
El-Pharazôn.
El Farazon.
Yeah, Pharazôn. Well, him with the eagle behind him and the wings spread out, and I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
that's Daenerys with the big dragon behind her. So
Yeah.
I put up that comparison thing
Mm.
on @melon_heads. Give us a follow, like and
Shameless plug.
subscribe.
Well, I mean,
Shameless
shameless
butt
plug for
plug.
ourselves on our own podcast. I'm sure we can do that. That's
Yeah,
fine.
there's nothing
Um,
shameful about it.
Very, very good. Right. So anyway, let's maybe just run through. We're not going to go through the trailer, scene by scene. That would take an age, and we just, who's got time for that? So we're going to just sort of pick out a few things, a couple of different characters, things that maybe I suppose we consider relevant. I will just mention how it opens up. It opens up with a voiceover from Durin, and he says, "An evil, ancient, and powerful has returned." And again, when you're looking at all
Ooh.
this kind of Sauron and all this kind of stuff, you could be going, "Oh, he's talking about Sauron," but I'm assuming he's probably talking about the Balrog, and
Yeah,
because we also get to
that's
see
good
a bit of
shout.
the destruction of Khazad-dûm. And again,
Hmm.
I was like, maybe is it because they're delving too greedily and too deeply again, and they are just like what happened in season one. There was like a rumble in the tummy of the mountain, and it just kind of like collapsed a bit. We also see Durin the third, like Durin's dad, kind of getting caved in a certain area. He's like looking up and there's like stones falling down, and he's like kind of seeing like the shadows closing in around him. It looks like he's getting like stuck inside a cave or something. And I was when I first saw that, I was like, oh, the same thing as season one. There's been a rock fall in some area because they were delving too deeply. But then I was like, actually, maybe they're probably just going to do the Balrog reveal coming out. Maybe the destruction of Khazad-dûm is going to happen in this season, and then also maybe that's what uh, Durin's on about. Because why would Durin know about Sauron being Anatar and all that at this moment,
Yeah.
especially when he says that scene? I think he's standing inside Khazad-dûm when he's talking about this. So I'm assuming he's just like, we've got our own shit to deal with over here, guys. So we'll get to your Sauron issue in a while.
No, that's absolutely true, and I didn't think about that at all actually until you just brought it up about the Balrog. I forgot the Balrog was even in season one altogether.
Mm.
But that makes so much more sense, and I'm actually glad now that you put that out there because yeah, of course, why would the dwarves know about what's going on in Eregion? And that makes me feel good as well. Just that the season isn't going to be all everyone coming together and fighting this, like everyone knows about Sauron. Sure, that wouldn't make sense at all. So,
Sure, the dwarves don't know
um,
what's going in Region.
very good.
Yeah, very good. So then, obviously, now again, I said I'm not going to go through it scene by scene, but I am kind of for the beginning because then we see like
Scene two.
the scene 1.5. We see like the Prime logo disappear, but it disappears in this kind of, again, I'm not sure if you picked up,
Yeah,
very like slithery kind of way. There was lots of slithering and sliding going on
there
during this,
was.
and they even mentioned the word slithering at one point. I believe it was Celebrimbor when he's out in the forest somewhere, and there's like these branches of trees just kind of sliding along the ground. And he
Mm.
mentions something about it slithers up beside you while those trees are like slithering. But then also, so we get
It
the
slithers inside your mind or something like that,
something like
or
that. Yeah, I don't know. Who cares?
sneaks up
Load of
inside of you.
shite. So that happens with the logo. It kind of just slithers away, and then like I think it's almost immediately afterwards. I think it's almost immediately afterwards that we see this kind of like it's almost like Venom. It reminds me of Venom,
Yes, that's
where
it. That's what it is.
do you remember there was? I'm not sure if it's supposed to be like a man who's like crawling on the ground and it's very like it's
It's the
black and it's
symbiote.
all it's
Yeah,
like the
the
symbiote.
the, the symbiote, like trying to leech it. It's almost kind of like an alien leech
Yeah.
that doesn't really have a form, and it's trying to like get onto something to become a
So
form.
Venom is
Just
in
like
Lord of the
Venom, yeah.
Rings now. I told you, new canon all the time.
It's canon. Yeah.
Crossover.
Mm.
But so I don't know I don't know what that was. It was some sort of like a manifestation of evil or something. But we get this weird kind of humanoid slithering thing going around the place. So again, I was like, okay, there's
Yeah.
that. That's a new thing. Um,
That's interesting.
yeah, that's something. Then we do get another voiceover then of the reveal of like Sauron is back, or he's probably going to be known as Anatar in this moment because that's what he was called when he
Hmm.
was in his elven form, when he had the name Anatar, which meant the giver of gifts, and he was handing out rings willy nilly. He was like, "You get a ring, you get a ring, you get a ring, everybody gets a ring."
It's like Oprah Winfrey over here,
Exactly, yeah. I did want to put on my Oprah voice because I do it so well. People be like, "Oh my god, how did they get Oprah to be on the podcast?" So I don't
or
want
else
to.
you'd get cancelled.
Yeah, that was
There
more.
is no in between.
There was that was more the reason, really. So there's a voiceover saying, "I think he's been here among us all along," and it sounds like Galadriel, but I was like, it can't be Galadriel saying that because she doesn't she know that? Like, as in,
Yeah,
it's
no, I assumed it was. I assumed it was her. Now again, I know you're the one that's put the kind of somewhat of preparation into this episode. So
I
you,
don't.
you probably looked into it a bit more, but I've just kind of watched it. I freeballed it a few times, so I just assumed it was her, and it was probably the moments right after she finds out, which is like right at the end of season 1, and she's like, he's been here among us the whole time,
But she says,
right?
I think he's been here among us all along.
Okay. Well,
And so
then
I'm
maybe
like,
this is her re-finding out again after finding out that it's Anatar now.
yeah. And again, Anajar is just basically, Charlie Vickers.
Halbrand with a
He just
wig.
puts on a lot, he just grows out his hair. And it's like Superman putting on his glasses. They're like,
Yeah.
Superman, where'd you go? Oh, hey, Clark. Oh, you're back. He just takes them off. Oh my God, it's Superman.
I did have a brief chat with someone on Twitter where they commented underneath one of our posts and they said something like, "Oh, this is so dumb. Like, so what? He just puts on a new wig and straightens his hair and now nobody recognizes him." And I think like
I doubt that's the way it's going to be, yeah.
But I think that it's going to be plainly it's Charlie Vickers playing a new character, but that's just for the audience. Like, we need to understand that it's the same character. Like,
Maybe the other
they're not
elves are
they're,
kind of blinded to his, like, maybe he can
they,
put a
yeah.
spell and kind of hide his actual real image, or else
Well, I think
maybe
he's supposed to look different. I just think that the writers of the show already did that whodunit thing in season 1, and they tried to catch everyone out because there was no Anatar. We had Halbrand and we had a bunch of other new characters, and we were waiting to see who it was going to be. So I feel like for people that don't know who Anatar is, it would have been awful to cast another new character.
Oh yeah, yeah, we've been waiting.
Sorry, another new actor. And then people will be like, well, so now I have to figure out who Sauron is again in season 2.
Well,
It'd be kind of like a series of unfortunate events always having Count Olaf, like changing his character in every book.
I don't know who that is, but I'm sure it's very good.
It's Jim
I'm sure it's a
Carrey.
very
It's Jim
good
Carrey.
reference. Okay.
Yeah,
Good reference,
you
Dave.
watch
Well
that.
done. Classic.
Thank you.
Menge ginge.
Mini kiki. Alkanahi. Hanakahatanane watakana.
Sorry, I was just coming up with a theory right off the cuff at the moment. I was thinking, what would you think? Imagine if there was a different actor, or Charlie Vickers wearing a mask or something during maybe the first 45 minutes of episode 1, and then, or even in all of episode 1, all of episode 2, and then the shot that we get to see in the trailer, which is of him walking through a courtyard in a region, and there's people kind of running all in
chaos.
There's chaos in the background, and then he's walking through, and you can clearly see that it's the same actor as Halbrand, Charlie Vickers. Imagine that he's actually been in disguise, put on a Mission Impossible face mask, and he's just done it with the wave of a wand or his fingers or whatever, because he's Sauron. And then basically he does this big, cat's out of the bag now. He kind of attacks a region or whatever he does. And then he's like, well, I could drop the disguise now. And so that's the reveal where we get to see his face change. And maybe there'll be a moment where he's walking and we get this kind of image where he's walking, and as he moves, his face changes, morphs. Yes, Mighty Morphin Charlie Vickers.
That's actually cool. Really cool. No, that's really cool, and
it's not going to happen though. It's too cool.
When I shared the picture that the Rings of Power Amazon page or whatever, they shared a new image of Charlie Vickers as Sauron. That was the only image they shared today, and I reshared that again, of course. And somebody commented below it saying, I really like this image, I really like this poster, but I wish they had him look more angelic. And then I looked back and I was like, oh yeah, he's a little bit roughed up and he's kind of smirking, but Anatar is supposed to look beautiful and angelic, and you'd imagine his hair is so well done. So if what you said, all the scenes that we saw in the trailer of Sauron, he's already kind of, come out of his own shell, and he's like, I am Sauron now. He's not really Anatar. So yeah, you could be right. Maybe all that stuff happens in episode 2, episode 3, and before that we get to see a beautiful Anatar character, which they didn't mention in the trailer. So people might be like, oh, who's this new guy? Anatar, he seems lovely.
Yeah.
Or did they mention?
Did they mention the name Anatar in the trailer?
I don't think they did.
No, definitely not. No, not at all. But I think, what you just said, that was probably my very first reaction when I saw this new and improved Charlie Vickers, this new Halbrand as Sauron now in his form. The first thing that I thought was, it's not all that hot, which is basically, Sauron's biggest trait is his hotness. When he is Anatar, when he's this elf and he's in disguise and he's trying to be, he kind of worms his way into a position of power in a region, and he's kind of he's just silver tongued, and also he's supposed to be just absolutely beautiful to look at, as all the elves, I suppose they all are. That was my first reaction. I was expecting him to be just way more kind of glammed up and done up, because we got to see Halbrand in season 1, and I know a lot of girls on Twitter are like, oh my god, Halbrand, he's so hot. I think he's kind of hot in the way that Aragorn, that kind of rough around the edges, like a wild ranger going through, and he's kind of got the stubble, and he had that kind of attraction.
Roughed up a bit,
but I think Anatar, from the books at least, he would be more of what you would see Legolas as, just kind of really never breaking a sweat, just being completely symmetrical, not a blemish on his skin.
Hotness.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
By the way, welcome to the Council of Elrond, guys, where we discuss the hotness of each character in all of Lord of the Rings.
We'll go through a backlog. Yeah. Tune in next week where we'll be discussing how hot all Marvel evil characters are. Thanos, what a babe.
Thanos, yeah. Josh Brolin, my God. It's the voice.
Actually, he is quite an attractive man.
He's pretty hot, yeah. He's also got a ball sack for a chin, but yeah.
That's what makes it. Right, we'll get on to the next thing, I suppose. We get to see the mystics. The mystics are back, or the druid ladies. I don't.
Mm.
Was that what they were called? The mystics.
The Mystics, yeah.
Yeah. And now again, we don't get to see any faces, so we don't get to see if it's any of the ones that seem to be kind of destroyed or diminished in season one, but they do the old leaf
right.
butterfly thing again, and they kind of like they're floating around the place. We do get to see, however, the first time we see them, there's a hand that's got blood dripping off it, so it looks like there's a cool kind of blood ritual going on, which is kind
Yeah.
of. And again, I think I heard this as well before from someone that they said that season 2 is going to be a lot darker than season 1,
Yeah.
which I'm all for.
It was one of the producers, no, one of the directors, I think. For
yeah,
like
it was
a handful of episodes.
I think I saw it on Twitter a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like she'd been interviewed, and there was like an article or something.
Yeah, I wonder is that a callback? The like cutting of the hand, kind of similar callback to Sauron's original scene in Peter Jackson's movies where he cuts his hand and forms the ring.
Well, tell people about that for a moment.
So for anyone that doesn't know, they didn't film this or shoot it in any way, but the what are the original?
Well, they did shoot
drawings called. They did shoot it.
Yeah, that's what we get to see in the. That's what Sauron's doing with his hand in the first scene.
No, yeah. Well, so what?
Prophecy,
what we saw in the prophecy. So at the very beginning of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies, when they're talking about Sauron, they show Sauron just holding up his hand with the finger, bearing all the symbols on the ring, and in the other hand, you may or may not notice that he has a knife in it, and. Actually, what happens, but I don't know if they actually filmed it, but what was supposed to happen was he was originally supposed to cut his hand and have some gold in his hand as well, and the gold and the blood of his hand mixed together and formed the ring on his finger. So
it was going to have an element of him inside the ring, and it would be very visual to explain that to audiences, I suppose.
Yeah,
that was probably the goal. And so they'd have his blood from his hand mingled with the gold, and that formed the one ring, which is a really cool concept. I think they said it was just a bit too dark, and they had to either cut it out or else just change their mind and not even shoot it in the first place. Now again, I don't know how much that went into shooting, but obviously we get the scene where he's standing on like the precipice of Mount Doom, and he's like holding up his hand in the air and he's holding a knife. So we did get to see that one scene of him holding the knife. So they got to shoot somewhat.
They get to shoot.
Yeah. So anyway, moving on. That could be a cool callback, or it could just be, I don't think it's a callback. I think it's just a cool blood ritual.
As it were.
Yeah. No, blood rituals are cool. They're always kind of like dark and, we're meddling with powers beyond our control kind of thing, and it's always, I always kind of...
spit rituals. Do you know where you spit in your hand and shake someone's hand?
That's just when you're buying like a calf at the mart, We've lost all of our viewership.
Or if you're Justin Bieber and just spit in a fan, or Jamie Carragher and spit in a fan.
There you go.
Who else has spat on a fan? Comment please below. I'd like to know. We've got Justin Bieber and Jamie Carragher. Anyone else?
We've got a bird shitting in Ashley Cole's mouth. Is that anything to do with
it? Which he still denies to this day. He's like, no, that wasn't bird shit. That was just an optical illusion.
Anyway, moving on. So yeah, my next note that I written down was blonde Sauron, not that beautiful. But I guess we've already covered that, so we can skip.
We kind of did. We covered it to death.
we got way too much of that. Sea monster! ! Was the next thing that I written down as well. We get to see this giant sea monster thing, which again, people are like, there was never any recorded blah blah blah, and I'm like, I want to see a cool sea monster. Like, why not? Why not?
By the way, like we talked about this before season 1 came out as well. Like, we could get to see the nameless things or the nameless beings or whatever Tolkien called them. So like, we just know there's a whole yeah. So this whole catalog of unnamed creatures that were supposed to be some of the most terrifying things that even Gandalf was too afraid to mention in the book. And like, there's just so much room to play with there. So yeah, if I see a huge, big, incredibly freaky monster in the Rings of Power, I'm definitely not going to give out too much about it, because like, I thought that thing looked incredible. That was actually one of my
few notes was the CGI
looked great in this trailer, and we'll get into some of the other CGI things, but so far we mentioned the slithery branches, which was cool, and the like butterfly effect and the cut. But yeah, that sea monster, it looks sick.
It did look pretty cool. It did look pretty cool. I liked it a lot. Yeah, I would agree with you in the way that we're in a fantasy land. This is not real, and so we need to kind of remember that when we're going into it. And so we can also say the sea is in our own world.
Always right.
The sea is always right. The CGI. I was going to say the sea. The sea in our own world is like what 90% or maybe 95% unexplored, and like we don't know what's going on down there. So the sea in a fantasy world is even more like, what the hell is under there, like, at all? Like, so I mean, if they say that there's another realm under the sea, I'm gonna just buy it. I'm like, that's fine, that's grand. I'm happy to let my mind wander to that kind of thing. The thing that will kind of annoy me a little bit is when we get stuff that's clearly going against original canon. Maybe stuff to do with like Mithril and all that kind of stuff from season 1. There was a few things that bothered me about the way they did that in season 1. But I definitely would never get upset about like, oh, they've just introduced a new type of weird being or monster that was previously undiscovered. I'm just like, all right, Grant, that's fine. It's like in season 2 of Pokemon when they were like, we've got 500 more Pokemon. And everyone's like, okay, that's fine. So
did that Mithril thing bother you so much? Like I thought that was, I think looking back now, it's kind of like it was a bit daft. But I remember at the time, I think in our initial reactions to the episode, I was kind of like, do you know what? It's clever because this is something that wasn't written about. It wasn't really breaking canon. It was just kind of stupid. Like there was no talk about how Mithril was created. So it was just a little
No, not the way that it was created. Sorry, not the way that it was created.
Oh.
The way that it was like going to be used to fend off the evil or whatever, that like, they had to.
Oh, you're right.
When they had like the lump of Mithril and then they had the elven leaf that was, poisoned or whatever, and they were just beside each other, and then it was like, the Mithril is the way Mithril was made. Again, I'm not like it was it was kind of cool.
By
I
the
enjoyed
roots of the tree of the Hildalgir or something like that.
Hithyglir.
That was it.
Hithyglir. Yeah, we got there. We got there in the end. Hashtag canon. So just to really annoy any people that are listening. I didn't really have a problem with that per se. Again, I would have been, if it was just that, it's just an old fable. And again, we spoke about this on the podcast at the time. I was like, I'm sure it's going to be like, well, it's a fable and it's going to be proved wrong, but it's kind of cool for the moment or whatever. But then when I found out, there was like, oh no, there's like, they're going to use Mithril as a way to like combat the evil, and then that
like
just
a magical tool.
Yeah, it's just like, then why would it didn't make any sense, because then obviously in Lord of the Rings, then if all elves or all people knew this, they'd be like, we want to get our hands on lots of Mithril because we need to use it to survive, to just be able to stay in Middle Earth. Anyway, moving on, that kind of thing is what annoys me more than just the introduction of a new kind of character, or like a sea monster or whatever. So yeah, definitely all for that kind of stuff. Dwarven Rings, Dave.
Yes, sir.
Tell me, what did you think? We got to see what?
We got to see monster. I don't remember. Dwarven Rings. We got to see. Oh, we saw Durin the Third at one point picking up a really blue. Yeah, it was like a lovely shiny blue looking
Again,
gem.
I'm just assuming that's going to be one of the 7 rings. So
yes, it has to be. We saw a lot of rings in this.
We saw loads of rings. We saw one scene as well of
Celebrimbor.
Lots of power. We got to see Celebrimbor at one point kind of tossing loads of rings. It looked like he was tossing them into the fire or something. I don't know. Maybe he was trying to get rid of some rings or something. But
making loads of those. What were those fake rings
lesser
called
rings
again? The lesser rings, dude. He was just pumping out some lesser rings.
No, at that point in the trailer, at least, it looked like he was terrified and he was trying to like destroy the evidence. Put all the cocaine in the toilet. Get rid of it. It seemed like there was that kind of thing, like FBI's banging on the door, and he's like, "Quick, get the rings out here."
Flush. But my lord, we have not invented a public toilet system. Flush it, damn it.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, Celebrimbor, inventor of the flushable toilet. Doesn't get credit for that one. So we get to see a dwarven ring of power. It looks like, remember, there will be 7 dwarves given by Halbrand, now Anatar or Sauron, however you want to call him. He'll be given out 7 rings to the dwarf lords. So we can
Spoiler.
safely assume that's going to be happening in this season. So
Yeah.
that's going to be kind of cool, I suppose. Well, why not? Again, that's something
Looking forward
which
to
is
that, yeah.
canon, which we could definitely say, I'd like to see that, play out on the big screen. So why not?
Yeah. Absolutely.
You had a small mention of it before when you were speaking about Daenerys Targaryen, but you mentioned our Pharazôn standing in front of a big giant eagle, which when I first saw the eagle flying in, I was like, oh, there's eagles. This is class. And then I was like, when I thought about it for a second, I was like, was Pharazôn riding that eagle, do you think? Or
I was going to bring this up because I wasn't sure if you were. I saw a lot of people mentioning that on Twitter, and I tried to slow this one down, and I was looking, and I don't think so. I think the eagle arrives, and the next shot it's a cutaway, and then it shows the eagle behind our Pharazôn, and he's just like staring at the crowd. It looks almost like, I don't know, is it delivering a message, or is he standing in front of the eagle and saying, like, everyone back off, like, don't talk to this thing, or I don't know, but like I really feel like it's made to kind of look like he flies in to the general audience, but I just think that
wouldn't be like the writers of Rings of Power to try and stir the pot.
Well, I mean, that doesn't make any sense, does it?
Well, no, first of all, I've not been on Twitter today. I haven't looked at any comments and I haven't seen any other people's reactions. So I'm going in completely blind. I have no idea. I'm just gonna assume everybody hated it because
no, actually, not really. Like the usual. There's a couple of people that follow us on Twitter, and they're completely silent. And then anytime I share some Rings of Power thing, they'll pop up and be like, "This is the worst, biggest travesty to Tolkien ever." Blah blah blah. But like, a lot of people were actually putting some good comments in there saying, like, didn't love season 1, but this looks great, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, okay,
which I can totally get behind. So
I like people that have open minds. That's lovely. It's nice to hear.
And open hearts.
I don't know. I don't know. My initial thought was just I saw the eagle flying in, and then I saw the next scene. And Pharazôn, I think his hair was a bit unkempt or something, and I was like, oh, it looks like he just got off the back of an eagle. So anyway, that's not really that's not a big deal. Well, no, it is a big deal, I think, because I don't want to see Pharazôn just riding around on eagles like he's trained an eagle and they're his little pets and stuff. And even if they're just coming to like do his bidding and like just deliver messages, if they're delivering a message that was from a higher power or something
from
Manwë, or from even like, I don't know what that eagle's name was, but like if it was Gwaihir had sent that eagle to go and like, here you go and warn the Númenóreans about whatever, that's fine. But if it's like, oh, Pharazôn just like whistles and his eagle arrives, so I'd be like, this is bullshit, because eagles obviously they're more important than the Númenóreans. They're more powerful beings. They're just like, hey, I'm basically, a Maya, and who are you? So I don't want them to like diminish the roles of eagles and like to be like, oh, they're just big pets and they're, handy in a tight spot kind of thing.
I think that's literally shoehorned into the trailer because it'll make people go, eagles, Lord of the Rings, and that's about it. But well, obviously they shot that scene and it's in the TV show, so I think it's exactly how you described. It's maybe an eagle just coming to warn the Númenóreans about. And maybe that's why our Pharazôn is standing in front of the eagle. It's almost kind of like, don't listen to him. I'm the good guy.
Yeah. Give me
don't listen to that. He's a madman.
Give me your vote. Don't vote for this bird. So who are you running against, Pharazôn? A fucking bird. I guess.
The eagles are coming!
Anyway, we get to see some battle scenes, Dave. We get to see a night battle. It looks like orcs led by the new guy who's playing Adar, and it looks like they're going to be charging on Eregion, is what it looked like to me. I only watched it a couple of times. But what did you make of that little snippet that we got?
Well, first of all, I think in case anyone doesn't know that Adar, the actor for Adar, Joseph Mall, has changed. He's left the show, and now he's been replaced by a guy, Sam Hazeldine. And you wouldn't even notice, like, he looks almost the exact same. And now I know there's a lot of makeup and prosthetics for that character anyway, so it's kind of handy. But I thought he looked great. The brief little scenes that we see of the attack on Eregion that we have to assume it will be looked really cool as well. Like, it looked like we're seeing a lot more orcs, and a lot of season 1 it almost kind of looked like it was shot in the volume. I know it wasn't, but it looked like they were dealing with limited space, or they only had 20 extras. But this time it just seems like a lot more full. Now maybe that was due to COVID restrictions, and
It was, yeah.
Yeah, now that they get to shoot in England and there's no more COVID, whoop whoop. I think it just looks a lot better. I really didn't know what to expect my reaction to this trailer to be this evening. Like, I kind of thought, am I going to be kind of holding back like I did for season 1 and kind of going, it looks pretty good, but at the same time, you do have your doubts. I just think everything looks a lot better than the teasers from season 1.
Yeah, I have to say that it still doesn't look right to me. The scene from the very first trailer dropped where Galadriel is scaling the ice wall. Just the CGI still, even when they put out the finished product, it still didn't look right. It looked like, I know elves have no weight, and so she didn't, but so that way, the physics would work differently. But it looked all, I don't know.
Her armor as well, it didn't look like it was part of her. It just looked all CGI'd in. And sometimes they use that still of her dangling by the knife. Do you know when she jumps from one edge to another edge, and she stabs the knife in and she looks up?
That's exactly the part I'm talking about. I just think it looks really bad. And I don't know why they went with that image and went with kind of pushed that as, here is your main heroine that's going to be, on screen for the next however many years. Because that was the first hero shot of Galadriel. And I was just like, it just doesn't look high quality CGI. I don't know. So I just think that I didn't have any of those kind of issues from this first trailer drop that I did from the first one that we saw a couple of years ago. So that's positive, I suppose. That's good. What the other things we mentioned, excuse me, cut that. The other things we mentioned were the, as we already said before, the armor looks a lot better. Again, there was a lot of effects in season 1 from the COVID restrictions that we've spoken about already before, but basically it was being shot in New Zealand, and both New Zealand along with Australia had the highest restrictions in the world, and people couldn't get in or out. There was a complete lockdown. There was if you were in there, if you were there on a holiday, it was just suddenly right, you live here now, here's the passport, and just you're here forever. So people couldn't, your accent just changed overnight. People couldn't get in and out that easily as they would have liked. So maybe even people who were designing art. Now I know that they had Weta workshops there, and was Weta, they were involved in season 1.
Weta was involved.
Okay. So. Well, then there shouldn't really be any. Maybe they don't have any excuses really. But maybe people who were designing them, maybe they just didn't have enough time again because of COVID restrictions. Hopefully they'll have designed them to maybe look a little bit better than they were in season 1. Hopefully they'll have, again, there was a huge problem with extras. There was a couple of scenes the scenes where Farazan was out in walking through the center of Numenor, and he's given these kind of little speeches. Now again, in the trailer it looked worse than it was in the actual finished product, because in the trailer we saw him standing up and giving the speech, and it was 13 people standing around and we're is this supposed to be a big crowd? But then it turns out that
theater.
It did look like it. It did.
If you're watching
that was maybe because of the costumes as well. But again, the number of people was so small. But again, I think in the actual episode, it was because it wasn't a prepared speech. He was just kind of wandering around. He was just standing chatting to people, and he kind of stepped up on the higher up on the steps. But again, hopefully they'll be able to just pack scenes out more with loads of extras, make them feel more lived in. Maybe just, I don't know. I know that it's taken a long time between seasons 1 and 2. So hopefully they will have been able to spend a bit more time focusing on the design, making it look more lived in, make their clothes not so pristine and clean all the time. Just have them kind of dirtier clothes, especially the commoners that are walking around. Maybe give them better haircuts than that like dude that was all obsessed about people taking their jobs. It's like, God, he looked like Lloyd Christmas, like from Dumb and Dumber. He was just, he was awful.
That was awful. So, and yeah, we've already mentioned that it looks like they have taken a lot of the criticism on board and they've addressed such things as the armor, such things that you can change. And like the elf hair thing was it was so needless. It was like just in your face, like here's some short hair. And I think the only person we see with short hair is Elrond, and I still think he looks badass. Rondir as well. Yeah, forgot about him.
But again, the people that we see with short hair are people who need to keep short hair because they had short hair in season 1. They can't just like have a Rondir show up in season 2 with like this long mane down his back and be like, Jesus, Rondir, what happened to you? It's like, I've been taking some protein powder.
He's a new character. They could just kill him off, and then by season 4, Elrond's hair will have gone down to his shoulders, and nearly everyone will have long hair.
Elrond's hair did look a slight little smidgy longer as well.
Smidgy longer, and he looked so cool.
He did look class. As you said, the helmet, that did look pretty class.
And another kind of Daemon Targaryen looking helmet.
I'm just excited to see Elrond in battle. That's gonna be cool as well. Like.
Yes, like we saw that.
Three
the
scenes?
very first.
The very first scene where I said before, where he's like in that circular formation with Galadriel. That's one kind of battle, sort of like little skirmish. Then obviously we see him during the horse charge. And we see him. There's a close up of him there with the helmet on. That could be from the same battle where he's charged with the horse.
That's the horse charge as well, I think.
Yeah. But again, there was a few. I'm just saying, there's a few different shots of him in battle, which were exciting. So moving on, wizards, Dave. Anything of note that you want to mention about what they used to call him, the mystery, the meteor man, or
Meteor Man, or the Stranger, as his official title was.
Yes.
Which
I know from the soundtrack.
Did you notice the lack of screen time that was given to the likes of the Stranger,
and the Harfoots,
and the Mystics as well? But I suppose I think I heard somebody. I was listening to a little bit of Fellowship Fans stream, and I think somebody on that might have said something about the Mystics could actually be used as servants of Sauron, and they could be the ones that actually hand out the rings. And I thought that was a cool idea. Like, it actually gives them some importance. It also would mean, like, you know, they're shape-shifting things, and I know Sauron
they weren't my least favorite thing from season 1. I enjoyed them. I thought they were like, you know, I liked the kind of horror element that they brought to it as well, like the kind of freaky.
So if they have a task to do, then that's great, and it makes sense why they're in the trailer more. But yeah, what you asked me about wizards, we do see the Stranger, aka Gandalf, aka hope it's not Gandalf. He seems
Please
to be
blue. Be blue.
Be blue, yeah, be a blue wizard. Maybe it's just a massive misdirect, but
I doubt it.
We see him in Rune again, where Gandalf never was, and the blue wizards definitely were. They were in that area of Middle Earth.
Do you reckon do you reckon that's where he is? He's in Rune with all the sand, I suppose.
I think. Well, I assume so. Like I think it came out.
I didn't put much thought into where he was actually. Yeah.
It was months ago, I think, that we saw some of the first behind the scenes shots. Well, not official shots, but like leaked. What are they called? The paparazzi shots, and we saw the Stranger in like a desert place, and I think lots of people were saying like, "Oh, he's confirmed to be going to Rune," or because you know at the end of season 1 he says we're going to go east or something like that. So for anyone that doesn't know, Rune is where is Rune? That's kind of where the Haradrim are from?
Yeah, like southeast, as in like basically nearly off the map when you're looking at like the regular
beyond Mordor.
Map. Yeah, very often when you see most of the typical maps, they'll kind of cut off at Mordor. But it's kind of like south of that and even further east. I don't know how big it is because Harad is a pretty big area as well. But, you know, Harad and Rune, I always kind of go, they're off yonder, off over there.
It's the Africa area of the map for humans.
In case nobody understood your African reference there. Africa? What?
Yeah, so it looks like we're going to get to see the boring scenes will be now boring sand scenes.
I love if Gandalf was just like, I hate sand.
It's coarse and
It's
it gets
coarse.
everywhere.
Yeah. And you're
Yes.
like, oh, you've combined what we hated about Anakin with what we hate about this new Gandalf.
But to be fair, I think I'd say they're going to do a little bit of what they did with Bran in season 5 of Game of Thrones. Well, actually, no, they just completely omitted Bran.
Oh,
but
no,
like,
no, I don't know.
they're
Yeah.
going to show a lot less. I think maybe, hopefully, but also try and make it more important. And like, we're not going to see loads of Harfoots now anymore. I don't think. I think we're just going to see the 2 that are traveling. Isn't there only 2? Nori
Were
and
there any
Narvi or
Harfoots at
something?
all in the trailer?
No, but at the end of this episode, we're going to talk a little
Yeah.
bit about behind the scenes.
No,
as
no,
well,
because
so.
because I'm think I'm kind of getting mixed up between the two because I'm trying to cast my memory back, kind of going. I don't think they even make any appearance at all.
Well, they definitely
so-
show the stranger, and I think he's hitting the staff, and there might be like 2 little like shadows clinging onto him as well. So there was
Those
a
were
lot of
his
quick
balls.
shots. Yeah.
So sorry, you said something there as well that I wanted to just touch on as well, which was his staff. So yes, he does have a makeshift staff that he's kind of. It's a bit curvy at this point. Like he still hasn't
Yeah, I don't
found
like
the
it.
perfect. He still hasn't found the perfect stick. You know when you're out walking through a forest and you're like,
Oh,
I need to go look for a good stick, and you're rummaging. You're like, oh, this is a bit shit, but look, it'll do for the moment. I'll find a better stick along the way.
yeah.
That's kind of where I feel like he's at the moment. He's like, look, it's the best of a bad lot for the moment. I'll find another one later on. So he's either found a stick along the way somewhere, maybe he's made a staff for himself, because we know that wizards were able to make their own staffs as well. So that looks like he's kind of starting to understand that he can channel his power into this staff and use this as a conduit, rather than in season 1 where he was just smacking his hand off the ground and nearly breaking his arm. So
Well,
he's
I
learning,
think that
Dave.
scene, he is learning, yeah, finally. Schnell. But I think he to remember that.
I love that scene. Schnell.
Schnell? Yeah, he's definitely going to bang that staff and be like, Schnell? No, but I was thinking like maybe that is that could be a scene of him picking up a stick that he found on the ground and smacking it into the ground again and forming a staff, or maybe that's the power going into the staff, and maybe it'll become a little more erect rather than that benty over little twig that he's carrying.
He's an old
around.
man, Dave. Don't have too many expectations. Right.
Happens to many wizards of your age.
Yeah, a wizard's sleeve has never been a more apt. Anyway, I'll stop right now. So we get to see my next note said the destruction of Moria, the Balrog, or maybe delving too deeply. We see Elrond in battle. We see all that. We see the confrontation of Sauron. So we see the elves all pull out their swords and they kind of gather around Anatar, aka Sauron, aka Halbrand. So that happens, I think, towards the end of the trailer. So what do you make of that scene?
That was really cool. That's obviously is it Celebrimbor? He's looking out into the distance and he sees a shadow, and I think it's actually in the behind the scenes video, which we'll talk about briefly as well, where he says, I met someone, or I found someone, or someone has visited. I can't remember what he says.
I met someone on Bumble.
Yeah, and he's clearly, well, I think he's seeing Sauron or something, and then he gets attacked and confronted by a bunch of other elves. And I just want to point out as well that if you actually, which I did do, I paused that scene. It's like maybe the second last image of the entire trailer, when they're all surrounding Sauron and they're pointing their swords, and Celebrimbor is in the background and he's clutching his arm, and he is not with a hand. It looks like his hand has been cut from his arm. So I don't know if you can put it up there in real time.
I'm just flicking through it here now.
So
put it up there,
let's
Jamie.
Not. Yeah, Jamie, just pull that shit up, okay? So for our audiences, I think, Johnny, we shouldn't spoil too much of what we might know happens in Eregion. But I just thought this was interesting. Another flashback to Game of Thrones. We're getting to see Jaime
Yeah,
Lannister, the man without a hand.
sorry, I see what you're saying now. I'm zooming in. I'm trying to zoom in and I can't. But now it could be. Now I can see he's holding one wrist in his other hand. It does. It. I can't say for sure if he's got no hand. It actually looks to me like his hand is just bent over and it's covered in like blood, and that's why it's dark and you can't see it. So I would not say for certain that he has no hand. So I would say that could be a theory that will be easily dispelled, but maybe it's true. I don't know. Who knows? Time will tell. But yeah, he's definitely been confronted under Celebrimbor's orders, I would assume. So Celebrimbor's discovered something. He's ran off, got his bodyguards to come charge into the room, and they've all pulled out the swords. And Sauron doesn't look that bothered. He's just got a little smirk on his face. So he's like, this is easy work for me, boys. Just watch this with a flick of his fingers, and he's able to kind of. Now we don't see what happens. We see him do his little wrist twisty thing, but then it changes the scene to this kind of. We see a big kind of. It looks like an explosion, but I definitely think that's from a totally different scene where they're showing what's the final thing, which is the reveal of Barad-dûr, and all this ice just kind of shoots out of it as well.
Oh, is that what you thought?
Do you not think that's Barad-dûr?
Well, I thought that was the thing that we got from season 1, the forward weight thing. So
it did look like that, and I thought that, so I'm not too sure. I just kind of again I could easily be wrong, and as I said, I haven't looked into this at all. I kind of looked at it at the end.
I like what you're saying. I like what you're throwing, what you're putting down there.
To be quite honest, my very first reaction when I saw that for the first time, I thought immediately it was the same kind of dark tower that we saw in season 1. But then I looked at it again, and like the setting of where it is with all the mountains around it, and I was like, it looks kind of like that could be Barad-dûr, and that could be like in Mordor. The land was all complete wasteland. Now, what did confuse me was all the ice that kind of just appeared as well. I don't know if that's. No, I was going to say maybe they just did that for the
trailer,
like for the trailer. But no, that'd be way too much CGI just to.
Well, like, as you were explaining it there, I was like, I wonder, is that a trailer thing? And maybe they're just trying to make you think it is the forward weight, but it's actually. It's Barad-dûr, and maybe what is the ice is in fact fire, or it's black.
Just the icing on the sugar. On the cake.
The icing on the sugar.
Yeah, I mean, the icing on the cake.
Sugar on the cherry. The cake on the cherry.
The sugar on the sweet.
I actually was quite excited about that scene, because when I saw it, I thought this is forward weight, which is what we saw in season 1, and this means we're going to get a big flashback. And that's going to be kind of cool. We're going to see like the origin of where Sauron kind of came from. But yeah, I don't know. Now it's all up in the air. I need to watch the trailer 10 more times.
Yeah.
What do you guys think it is?
That's it. Again,
that's what I want to know.
The kind of fun of these moments when we're watching the trailers and stuff is kind of the speculation. And sometimes we come up with these wild theories, which end up being way better thought out than the actual plot. So we're like, oh my God, I should be planning this stuff. But it's fun. It's fun to kind of just speculate and think about what could be, and at this point the possibilities are endless, basically. But then we will get a definite answer at some point. But for now, just let your imagination run free and run wild.
Absolutely.
But I believe that's pretty much the end of the trailer. So we get to see now. As I was flicking back to try and see that scene there, Dave, I did catch a glimpse of the scene with the stranger again. He does smack his staff off the ground, and there's this. It looks like a big sandstorm, and there is a small little hobbit or Harfoot hanging off a rope that's kind of been blown away by the wind. So that was the only appearance of any Harfoot, and I'm going to just assume it's Nori. And that's her only little snippet that she gets in this entire trailer. So that bodes well, being that hopefully that's kind of the percentage of time that the Harfoots and the wizards.
You mean like the ratio of like Elrond and Galadriel to Harfoot and Stranger?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I mean. And Sauron and Celebrimbor and
the actual existing characters.
We didn't actually speak at all really about Durin the Fourth either. No. Again, we don't get to see too much of him. As I said at the very beginning, it's his voiceover which starts off the whole trailer, saying that there's an evil and an ancient power that has awoken or whatever it was. So again, I don't know. I don't have too much to say about him. We see a scene of him again. I might be going into behind the scenes territory now when we got that other thing, but we get to see a scene of him with Disa, and they're kind of both falling over. Again, it just looks like Khazad-dûm is kind of crumbling down or whatever. So, but we'll get into that now, I suppose. So, at this section of the podcast, guys, we're going to just quickly shift into the second drop of the day, which, if you haven't seen, the Prime Video also dropped a short, like 2.5 minute behind the scenes video as well, which was very surprising to be getting like all this info just straight one after the other. It would have been a typical kind of thing to release the trailer and then maybe even wait a couple of days or a week and then drop something else just to kind of keep the flow and keep the kind of people engaged a couple of days in a row. But very interesting. And again, we all knew that the trailer was coming. We didn't know that this was coming. So it was quite nice to get that. I always love behind the scenes stuff. It kind of just,
love them,
whatever kind of doubts you have about, you're like, oh, this looks a bit crap. You just get to see people there on set. You get to see the actors and they're so excited and like, they're all like, oh, back in Middle Earth. And I was like, that made me excited. I was like, oh, this is cool. The guy that plays Isildur, is it Max
Baldry? Maxim
Baldry?
Baldry, isn't it? Yeah.
Maxim Baldry. So yeah, Maxim Baldry. He's there trying to say that there's like this set that they've designed, which is like really, it's got orcs and stuff in it. And he was like, oh, you can't go in there. It's too terrifying. So, so there's going to be these kind of like, maybe like jump scares and dark,
and in
gritty,
that scene, it looked
evil.
like an orc was jumping out of the wall or something with no legs.
It looked like it was, it looked like it was
like
kind
The
of
Walking Dead or something.
Or The Witcher. Do you remember The Witcher? That scene where they like turn the three girls into like, it's almost like the Human Centipede kind of thing. Was it 6 girls?
No, I wouldn't imagine.
Turn three girls
into 6.
Yeah. And they were kind of like morphed into the wall. And then, so it looks like there could be those kind of like scary things, which is exciting. And I always like to see those behind the scenes. But I'm going to just throw it over to you for the section to say, to guide us through this next part. So I'll take it away, Dave.
Yeah, well, first of all, before we move on to this, one of the most important things about the trailer that we forgot to mention is mark it on your calendars. It's coming out on August 29th, which is way sooner than I expected, and I assume you expected as well.
I expected like a December kind of a thing almost.
I did think so too. I thought, maybe September again.
Yeah, I thought maybe the end of September. Even though the last one was early September. This is late August, so it's, encroaching on the similar start time to the last one. So, we will see.
That was a big shock because now we only have a couple of months to start banging out some marketing before it actually releases. But anyways, as you put it, Johnny, the behind the scenes, I think the very start was kind of funny because we get the voiceover from Morfydd Clark in her really thick Welsh accent saying, Galadriel driven by a bigger purpose, more connected with Middle Earth and the people in it. And I was just like, oh my God, she's a great actress because
that's
she could
a far cry from her Galadriel, her ethereal accent that she puts on,
Yeah, it's... I don't know how many Welsh fans we have out there, but you guys got an interesting...
Dave basically nailed it. That's
nailed it. Well, yeah,
we apologize to all of our Welsh listeners.
We get to see one of the cool things I picked up from the behind the scenes trailer was the character Aarion, I think is her name, who we didn't really see much of it. Yeah, we didn't see her really in the trailer, but she says something along the lines of, I'm going to paraphrase here. She says, "The chessboard has been set, so now the chess pieces can move." And I just felt like, well, she can only speak from her own experience of all the scenes in Numenor. So we're definitely going to see the political mind games with Ar-Pharazôn and the Faithful, and I think that's going to be cool. It's going to be a new element to Numenor because Numenor should be really cool, but I think we were all expecting the political movement to happen in season 1, and it just didn't. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that in season 2. Of course, we also get to see the great John Howe. I don't even remember what he said, but that was cool to get a little...
I think he was actually... What he spoke about was, he mentioned that it's exciting because they're visiting new locations, which again, for me, was one of the biggest takeaways from that behind
Well,
the
they're going
scenes
to
little
Rune, I
thing.
suppose.
Yeah, but I'm saying new locations, meaning that we thought that it was going to be
Oh, in
almost
Middle
100%
Earth.
shot in, well, not in Middle Earth, but also in England, I suppose. That
All right, okay.
maybe it's not all being shot in England because, like, I mean, where are they going to get a desert in England?
That's
Like
true.
Brighton
The
Beach.
beach?
Yeah. So I'm assuming because it looked like some of the scenes were shot in like a Croatia or in, I don't know, some areas that they didn't look very England at all. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. They couldn't have shot any of the Rune or what we perceive to be Rune scenes in England.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that's in a set.
Now we know
But
they have
anyways,
the budget to basically build their own desert in like some big,
That's
huge warehouse somewhere if they
very
wanted to.
true.
But hopefully they just jumped on a plane and went to an actual real desert and were able to shoot it more.
they did
on
because
set.
they showed like big shots in that behind the
Yeah.
scenes, like
That's what I'm trying to say.
helicopter.
So
All right, okay.
John Al was saying something about new locations, and I was like, oh, they're going to be out like in different countries shooting these scenes as well. So that was
Yeah,
I don't know why.
that's true.
I don't know why I was excited that they're just not going to
No,
be the
you're
whole
right.
time in England, but it's just I'm like, oh, I don't know where they're going to be. That's cool.
No, you're right. Yeah, when I didn't really pick up on that, but now that you're mentioning it, I'm like, yeah, that is a big deal. The whole England thing was a bit of a
Bummer.
nothing against England. It's just the
I
fact
know,
that
yeah,
it's like we're confining ourselves to one country, whereas obviously it was always in New Zealand, but like that was Middle Earth for us, and this is supposed to be so much more vast than just the Middle Earth
because
that
we
it's
know
supposed to be
England
much
so
bigger.
well, and we're so familiar with it, I don't think it has all of the terrains that would be able to encapsulate a really authentic Middle Earth. So when I thought like, oh, it's going to be all shot in England, and any scenes that are not in like a green backdrop are basically going to have to be shot in like the volume or in some green screen kind of
set
thing.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was, I hadn't really considered it too much, but I was like, there was something like that kind of made me excited when I heard that new location. So that's something.
That's true. Yeah, and another thing, we didn't really mention this in the trailer either, but it's perfectly fine to bring it up now because for the behind the scenes trailer, we also got some great music and
Yes.
in the trailer, and we got to see Bear
yeah.
McCreary, and also for anyone that doesn't know, the actress that plays Disa, Sophia Nomvete, she is an incredible singer. We met her in person. We didn't hear her sing though, but we could see her behind the scenes with Bear singing in the studio, and
she spoke about singing as well. She spoke about, well,
That's-
she didn't
that's
speak
right,
about
yeah.
singing, but I just assumed she was talking about singing because she was saying
She
like,
kind of was.
you're going to see us
Whatever
like
she
at
was
our full
talking about-
power or whatever. Because obviously we
Yeah.
got to see them singing to the mountain in the first one. And
Which was
she
so cool.
spoke about it in one of the episodes. She said like, oh, sometimes we can sing and we can find out where we should go and where we should dig and where we shouldn't and where we should leave the mountain alone. And then obviously there was a scene where some of the dwarves got trapped under the mountain, and they were kind of like, were they singing to them then to try and get the mountain to let them go? I'm trying to remember. I'm mixing
Sounds
up
kind
my...
of dumb that we bring it up now, but like, I think she sang the mountain to release the men, something like that.
Yeah. No, I loved that element of it. I thought it was
I'm
class.
joking.
I was like,
thought that was great, yeah.
I really enjoyed that part of it. And again, she's an amazing singer, and she's so operatic. And I still remember that scene when she was singing to the mountain in season 1, and then it cut to the scene where Arondir and the other young lad were being chased through the forest, and they kind of went out into that opening.
Okay.
And remember the sun, the orcs were chasing them, and then the sun was just creeping up through the clouds, and
that was brilliant.
it was just this beautiful, amazingly shot scene. It was stunningly beautiful. And then we had Sophia's voice in the background, just belting out, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. So there's
that was
certain
stunning,
scenes like that when you just mix an amazing visual with some beautiful music, you have me.
Yeah. Actually, you just mentioned that guy. Well, I can't even remember his name, but he was omitted from the trailer altogether. Begins with a T,
Theo?
I believe.
Theo.
Theo. Yeah. Is it Theo?
Yeah. I remember because remember when we met him, he was wearing a white suit, and it had Theo written down the front of his suit or something like in blue.
Did it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
remember that.
didn't know his name. I just remember seeing like.
I didn't know his name then. I was like, oh, it's like he's wearing a name tag.
But yeah, it really looks like Sophia Nomvete is seriously cooking music with Bear McCreary, and
It was so good to see Bear. It was so good to see Bear in that trailer as well.
I love him so
because
much.
he, for the small clip that we saw of him, he looked like he was, almost like a movie director. he was kind of
Yeah.
like speaking into the microphone, like saying, okay, when you're on set now, you're going to be feeling different, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. But it seemed like he's not just some guy that's off in a little, music studio making the
Oh
music
no, he's
and
all in.
whatever. He's really involved, and he's speaking to the actors, and he's speaking to people, and like he's really in a level there where he can take control of things, which was really, really cool to see, because I trust that guy. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, but like, I mean, even since it was first announced that Bear McCreary would be doing the music, like, I admittedly didn't know who Bear McCreary was at the time, but since then he's gone on to do much bigger projects, and he's really becoming a big name in
He's
Hollywood.
been winning awards and all
Winning
sorts.
awards left, right, and center. He's done the like a lot of those Godzilla movies as well, like some of the modern ones. So those are proper blockbusters. But I was
a
thinking
lot
when
of
we were
big
talking-
games, like
and a lot of big games, God of War and all that.
God of War.
When we were talking about Sophia Nomvede, I was thinking like maybe she could have been one of the best newest characters added to Rings of Power, like out of all the new guys like Arondir, Theo, the Bronwyn, all those kind of sub characters.
Yeah, I did have a
think
soft spot for
Sophia-
her, and I really enjoyed her, like the chemistry that she had on set with I've forgotten the actor's name who plays
Owain Arthur.
Owain Arthur, yeah.
Yeah.
Their chemistry was electric, and it was really, really good, and it was really believable. And I just love seeing them both on screen together. So yeah, and on together, and I thought that she was really good separate as well. As I said, her scenes where she was singing to the mountain, she was explaining that to Elrond and different things like that. Like, yeah, I agree with you. I thought she was really, really good. I will say that I thought Arondir was a bit of a dark horse as well, and for me,
Yeah,
he
he
turned out to be a really, really good character. I liked him a lot as well. So yeah,
I think I just said his name because he was more memorable, and then I was like, who else was there? Like Bronwyn, and I didn't love Theo. I just didn't like them, but like
what was it? What was his name? What was the character's name? Theo's character. Hasselhoff.
Write it in the comments, guys. Anyways, speaking of Disa, I just wanted to say as well, one of the last at the end of this trailer, we get like a couple of flash images, and one of them is, well, first of all, one of them is Galadriel on a horse, and she looks so cool, and she's kind of wearing nice clothes and a bit of armor, and she just looks way cooler than her silly kind of, medieval knight armor. But Disa, we get a clip of Disa, and she looks like she's holding onto a very round object. It looks like a palantir of some sort.
Oh,
yeah.
I missed that completely.
Yeah,
was that in the behind the scenes?
Pull
or the
that
trailer?
up, Jamie. It was in the behind the scenes. It looks like she's holding a palantir, but like that's all. Basically, my note here says Disa holding palantir? Question mark? Question mark? Question mark? Now maybe there's like more official guys on the interwebs that is like they're like, oh, well, that's clearly the Mind Stone of Zahir or something. But I don't know what it was. I thought that was kind of cool. And finally, another one of those little quick 3 shots. There was like some sort of I don't know, was it an elf or a man on the floor? But that's not the important part. There was like a skeleton man in front of him, and he looked like one of the Army of the Dead. He kind of looked like the King of the Dead because he had like red robes. I think he had a crown, and he had a skull. I was like, what is this? And he looked like he was supposed to be floating, like it was a behind the scenes kind of cut, not a final cut. So yeah, I don't know. Theories. Who's got him? Not me.
I need to watch that again.
You need to watch that again. But yeah, guys, if you know what's going on there or can enlighten us, just let us type it in.
No idea what's going on. Also, Dave, I forgot to mention Elendil. Again, kind of pushed to the back a little bit. Didn't get a huge lot of screen time in the trailer, but we do get a couple little snippets of him. And again, just really cool to see him on the screen. He was another fan favorite for season 1, I think. Did a fantastic job. We did get to see him in one kind of scene where it looks like there's a massive struggle somewhere in Numenor, and basically there was like, I don't know, I wouldn't call it a battle, but there was a scene where there's like a load of people just kind of like all squashed together, and they're kind of charging for like a door or something. But I don't know, I need to go back and watch that as well. I can't remember, but there was some sort of a struggle and some sort of a fight going on somewhere inside Numenor, and yeah, that's to be expected. Expect more violence in Numenor, I suppose, in season 2.
It's a shame we didn't get to hear him say his catchphrase. Numenor.
Yeah.
He's good. But yeah,
yeah.
I think that's a roundup for it all, right?
That's a wrap. Yeah. That's a wrap of power. So I think, yeah, guys, please get in touch. Please let us know because, I suppose I am curious to see if you guys had a similar feeling to us because, as I said, that I'm quite positive. I think after seeing that trailer, I am just my general feeling is excitement. Now I know I was very excited as well for the last one, and then as I said, my feelings kind of maybe changed a little bit, or I don't want to say I was let down, but again, I went in with just expectations that were probably not very realistic, and they were insurmountable. And maybe they were not met. They were met at points. There was some things that I really loved about season 1, but this is not a season 1 review, so we're not going to go down that road. But please let us know what your overarching thoughts are on it. If you're slightly positive for season 2, if you're extremely over the moon excited about it, if you're a bit more apprehensive, if you've got no intention of watching it at all, just let us know. Get in the comments.
Yeah, and don't forget to follow us on all of our socials. @melon_heads is the Twitter. You can find us on Instagram, @melonheads, I think, or @themelonheads, I think it might be. But yeah, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. We're on YouTube. Check us out on YouTube. We've put up a couple of videos there recently. And thank you so much for listening, and we shall see you next time.
See you next time, guys.